Good morning everybody and a very warm welcome to Mildenhall and Volmer. And basically today I have a layout update and the Loco project update, and also there is a new project which I've started and finished. So without further ado, we'll get onto that bit first. Now, those of you who watched the live stream will know that I purchased a few bits and pieces recently. I've got a couple of 20s GBRF, and also I got this. So this is a reach stacker by Oxford Diecast. Now I did show it on the live stream, but again, those of you who missed it, here it is in the flesh. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because it's a beautiful item, and I've got one already. So those of you who would have not seen my live stream and would have seen it on my layout will know that I already had a previous one, which was a red one, which was kindly donated to me and given to me by Michael Lawrence, along with the straddler and a number of the lorries that appear on the layout. But the little red reach stacker was looking a bit on the tatty side after a number of years in service. So I decided to give it a bit of an upgrade and a refurbishment, and I've given it a complete overhaul and a complete repaint. So it looks completely different to the red reach stacker that you saw previously. It's basically in the same colours as this one here, as the Maritime one, just to keep it very similar. So I'm just going to show it to you what I've done. So here is my red, what was my red reach stacker. It's now been repainted along the lines of the blue one, of the blue Maritime one. So it's had a complete repaint. So obviously the main body is now blue. The cab was silver, that is now white. All the handrails have been picked out in white. The wheels have been completely repainted, although they are glossed. We'll come on to that shortly. The actual bar itself has been completely repainted, and I've also added the addition of the yellow kind of warning signs, warning markers on the edges there, which I've also done. Right on cue, 450 SWR. Also, I've added little lights on it, on the back and on the front. I've picked out the mirrors, and I've also picked out the engine components as well. So the only thing left to do with this reach stacker is to actually repaint the wheels, because as you can see, they're completely gloss. But that's purely because I've glossed the whole thing and lacquered it and just glossed it. So that's why it looks so shiny, and it's basically to try and keep it in keeping with my new one. So they both look very similar. They're not the same, but they look very similar. And now it just looks tidy now, and it looks pretty ace. I'm really pleased with that. And you won't really notice the difference between the two when it's on the layout, apart from the fact that one's got transfers on it and the other one hasn't. But that's like a lovely little reach stacker now that I've just managed to give a new sort of coat of paint, a new lease of life to. I've also should say that if I put it on its side, you can see that I've also done the corrugated checker plate steps and picked them out in silver as well. So that was a nice little project that I've done over the weekend, started and finished, just to give this a complete overhaul and repaint. Really enjoyed it, and now it looks really lovely. I'm really pleased with that, and it'll just sit in nicely with my new version. So something else that I've been doing on the layout is I've been starting to map out the route of where everything is going to be going. And so I haven't finalised everything, but we're getting to a point where I'm starting to figure out where things are going and what the route is and everything like that. And there tends to be quite a bit of a one-way system going on in these container terminals. And so that's kind of what we've got going on here. Now this has changed quite a bit, just the entrance here, because obviously we used to have the 2 entrance points, which we still do, but the furthest point used to go right out into the unloading bays which were there. I'm not exactly sure how I'm doing that at the moment, but what I'm doing now is basically the 2 points that are here basically now filter into this top lane here. So, and then this is the main sort of starting point here. So so it doesn't matter which lane you're in, whether you're on the left or the right, you'll just filter into this lane here. There's a little gap here, and this little gap is basically for when the staff come in, obviously to keep them away from the main container terminal. They can just come in through here and park their cars up around the back here, as they do. And then this kind of point here is where the fueling bay is. And I've just knocked this fueling bay up just out of scraps that I've had. It's just a stone building. It's got a tank in there. I haven't finished with this yet because I'm going to get a pump put in there and things like that. But basically it's just a stone building. And that will just sit in there. And then basically the fueling truck will basically come from this point, bear left here, and pull into the fueling bay to offload. So this bay here is literally only just to load and unload fuel. That's the only purpose of this bay. So any other main traffic from the outside will use this lane here, either from this point or that point there. As we sort of look along, you can see that I've kind of continued with the matchsticks theme. I'm not exactly sure. As you can see, the reach stackers are there, so that gives you kind of like an idea of how they're going to be working. And I'm just going to zoom you in a bit. And as you can see, the reach stackers are there at work. And as you can also see, I've also started to map out, if I can find my finger, I've started to map out where I want all the containers to go. So I've kind of lined them up and worked out where they were going. As you can probably see, there's a few road markings already to be painted on the floor, on the concrete. So this is a one-way system that comes all the way along the bottom. And for the fueling truck, this, once it's offloaded, it can go straight out to the exit. And also any container lorries which are ready to go can go out through the exit, which is around the outside perimeter. If you've got any container lorries which need to pick up from the other side of the stack, they can then basically go back round on themselves back to here. So they can just go back round this one-way system here. And then they can follow it to their stack, whichever container. For example, if it's that container, they can pull up alongside it. The reach stacker will lift it, load it onto the lorry. And then when it wants to come out, basically it would then make this kind of U-turn back on itself around this section and then back along out and onto the exit as before. So that is the plan for that bit. The outer bit down towards the end, this is where the lorry park is going to be. I'm not quite sure. I was thinking of putting some containers, additional containers here, or putting the unloading here, but it just seemed a bit too crammed. So I might just put a little mini kind of roundabout here so the lorries can go back on themselves and reverse into the parking bays if they need their brakes, or maybe if their load isn't ready, so they can just go back round there. So like I said, they probably come down here and then basically do a U-turn and then basically reverse in. I'm thinking of putting an exit point along here so that the staff that are working here don't need to go through the yard where it's dangerous and stuff like that. They can just come out through this point here. So I'll probably put a break in the fencing here to make the exit point for the staff. So I think that will probably be what's going to happen along there. So I've now kind of got that kind of sort of mapped out in my mind. It's not 100% settled. Like I said, I've still got to paint the road markings and everything, so it's not quite set in stone yet. But, you know, we're not too far off. So the next thing to show you is coming into shot now. Now, I did mention earlier in the video, if you'd seen my live stream, that I did get a couple of 20s. These are the newly released ones from Hornby. And I've got the two. And as you can see, there's one on the front and then there's one on the back. So at the moment, they're just sort of testing with a load to see how well they run together. To see whether or not they're speed matched to a point that they can run together. And they seem to be running pretty happily together, as with the 73s. So I'm really pleased with that. So this is kind of like them not doing a top and tail. They do run together directly behind one another, and they seem to be okay doing that as well. So they seem to be perfectly happy doing that. The only thing I would say is that I'm probably going to get rid of these buffers, because I think these buffers are too small. So I'm probably going to get some different ones. But apart from that, great job by Hornby. And they seem to be very, very happy together. So now, as you can probably hear, I've got something else to show you. And this is basically my DB Schenker repaint. I finally finished it yesterday. So here it is, 60007, the Spirit of Tom Kendall. Now, I've been looking forward to doing this one, and I have to say, I've had a lot of issues with it. However, I think we're almost there. I'm just going to shut it down so you can hear me. Basically, out of all the 60s, she's probably the worst performing of them all. So I'm still working on that. It's actually the slowest and the least responsive, and I'm not sure if it's to do with the chip, to be honest, because I knew the chip did get slightly damaged, which is why the light's don't quite work as well as they should. So I know the chip's a bit iffy, but the thing is, it's a sound chip, which is why it's in it. And I wanted this one to have a sound chip. So whether I put a different sound chip into this, I don't know. Whether it's the chip that's playing up, I don't know. But it looks absolutely great. I'm really, really pleased with this. Now, I have to say, transfers, multi-slide transfers on Locos to do is one of those things that I love-hate. It really is kind of one of those that if they look great, they look absolutely brilliant. And if you get them wrong, or they can be an absolute nightmare to get on. This particular Loco was an absolute nightmare to get the transfers on. And that's just purely because it was just one of those things. I don't know what it was. It's just that with my other 60s, they went on all right. But for some reason, this 60, I had a lot of trouble getting the transfers on. Nothing got damaged, thankfully. I did have to use one of the spares, but that isn't really a problem. It looks absolutely awesome. I'm really pleased with the way it's turned out in the end. It took a bit of work, a lot more work and a lot more time to get these decals on than it did on the other ones, even though they're relatively, you know, there's not too many of them on here. So like I said, this is the Spirit of Tom Kendall, 60007. And it's got one of the reasons why I wanted to do this one is because it's got the DB Schenker on the front here, and it's also got the switch to safety, or switch on to safety I should say, on the sides, and it's the same on the other side. And this was one that I kind of really wanted to do. It was one of the ones that when DB first came out with the 60s and did the first reds, this was one of the first ones they did. And I should say, this is one of the first ones that Hornby did, and I never really got to it because it was just too expensive at the time, and I'd missed the boat because I was only just getting back into the hobby back then. And I've always wanted it. So I've always wanted this livery. I've always wanted to get it, and now I've managed to develop the skills to be able to do it. And I think it's come out really, really well. Like I said, the chassis has been completely repainted in the gloss black. It's been converted from DC to DCC. It's got DCC sound. It's got lights on it. It's got instrument lights on it, although they are a bit dim. And I think that's just, like I said, because the lighting's a bit iffy on this particular chip, because I inadvertently put a short through it, and I think it affected the chip. And it's also got cab lights in it. But she looks absolutely gorgeous in this colour. I'm really pleased with the lacquer as well. The lacquer that I'm using on this, it doesn't really come up as mottled. I think some of the other ones that I've done, it's had this kind of mottled look about it. I think it comes across quite a lot on my HSTs, that it has this kind of mottled effect on it. It might be a case I might revisit those HSTs, since I've learned from my first early repaints to these ones. I'm really starting to get the hang of what I can do and what I'm supposed to do to get it better. But I'm really, really pleased with this. And I'm just going to take you to the front of the Loco, so bear with me a minute. So here we are at the front of the Loco, and probably the worst decal to put on the 60. I mean, there is some worse ones. I mean, this orange count rail, I haven't put the wipers on, by the way, yeah, but this orange count rail was an absolute nightmare on this one. It wasn't so bad on the others, but on this particular 60, for some reason, I just couldn't get it right, and it just took me forever to line this up. But that's come out well enough now for me to be happy with. But the worst one has to be the numbers on the front, the 60007 on the front. And the reason is because of the close proximity it is to the grille, and also to the indentations of, I don't know whether it's a panel cover or something, that basically if you don't get that number on correctly, and you get up anywhere near this grill, the numbers just fold into themselves, and you can lose the numbers in the grill because it just falls into this thing, and then you can't get it back. So that's probably why it's so difficult. But like I said, I had so many issues with putting the decals on, but thankfully they have all gone on, and they've all gone well once they're on. So now they're on, and I've lacquered it. Hopefully it will last for a very long time, and it's pulling its raker tankers around the layout, also testing them on the new track to see how they get on, to see if they can find any problems with the track work. These tankers are they're a bit like the spine wagons. They're tricky customers. If there's problems with the track, the spine wagons, the tankers, and the car train are probably the ones that are going to find it the first, to find it quickest. And also with the 450 EMUs, they also can find faulty track work pretty quickly. So before I send this 60 on its merry way, a quick word on the 20s GBRF. I had to reverse CV29 on one of them to get one of the directions to reverse so they can run nose to nose, rather than both running in the same direction. So that's something that you'd have to bear in mind, but they seem to be running pretty well together. So let's send this 60 on its merry way. Now I did change the CV on the acceleration to see if it will help, but I'm still going to have to tweak it and readjust it because it's still a bit too crazy at the moment, so it's not settled down yet, so I'm going to have to readjust the CVs on the deceleration and acceleration. So, welcome back to my sofa. I hope this concludes the video for today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and until the next time, which will probably be another update before the end of the week, because I'm sure there'll be a lot more work done between now and the end of the week to show you. And then, so I'll probably speak to you at the end of the week before I go back to work next week. So until the next time, it's bye from Milton Horn Farmer. Bye bye.